How's it going, guys? Did you get a flat on your Javelin? Well, today I'm going to show you how to repair that flat, more specifically the rear tire. You can use the same example to do the front tire, it's just that the rear tire is more complicated because of the motor. All right, let's get started. Before we get started, I'm going to 100% recommend you go on Amazon and you just buy one of these motorcycle spool stands. They are like $30 to $40 and they will make your life so much easier for working on this bike. If you look at the back of the bike, there are these two spools right on the swing arm, and those allow this tool will line up on each spool, and then if you push down, we'll pick the entire bike up. And now this will free spin. And so when we drop the motor, it's just gonna go straight down and it's gonna make life a lot easier. So we're taking a look at the back of the bike, and hopefully if we drop the motor, you will be able to pull out enough of the cable that you can work on it. But if that's not the case, we're gonna need to get a little bit more slack. And so I'm gonna show you a special panel underneath the bike that you will need to open up to pull more of the motor cable. So if we go underneath the bike, you're gonna see the controller mount. And then you're going to see this panel right here, and there are two screws that hold this plate on. Let's see if I can show you a better angle. If you loosen these two screws, that panel will come out and you can pull the motor cable farther out. When we're done doing the install, you'll be able to jam the motor cable back in there and put that protective cover on. So this is a frame that was just welded up and it's upside down. And I'm gonna show you it this way so you have an idea of what that bottom plate does. That bottom plate mounts onto these two holes and it goes underneath the foot peg assembly. And you see this big chamber in here? This big chamber is where all the rest of the motor cable lives. So it kind of goes from your motor in through here and is stuffed in here so that if you ever need to change a tire, you can loosen that panel and pull out the rest of the cable. So this is all intentional to make it as easy as possible for you. Now, let's say that you need to remove your entire wheel because you want us to change the flat for you, or maybe you even want to change to a different motor or a different wheel size or something. So on your bike, there are 4 screws, 1, 2, and on the other side, 3, 4. You undo those 4 screws and this entire controller will fall down. There's gonna be a lot of cables in there, but it will fall straight down. And once you do that, you're gonna see your controller right there, and it's gonna have 3 screws on it. Actually, let's get a controller. All right, here's your far driver controller. And your motor cable is going to be held on to these 3 points. These are going to be the 3 main lines. You're going to undo those 3 screws and your entire motor will come right off. There's another line that's going to come off from this main 32 pin cluster. Those are going to be the hall sensors and your temperature sensor. You undo that and the entire thing will pull straight through. So let's take a look at how the swing arm of the Javelin works. On either side, there are torque arms. They are these stainless steel pieces that you're going to see on the inside there of that swing arm. There's also a spacer that will be between the torque arm and the motor. Sometimes there's 1 spacer, sometimes there's 2, depending on the motor that we're using. There is going to be a large nut on the outside that's holding your motor on, and some very special Nord lock washers. So to start, we are going to loosen up the torque arm. To loosen them, take your wrench and put it on the nut, and then take your Allen and loosen the screw. You're going to pull out the screw from each of these torque arms, and that's going to allow this whole assembly to drop down once we loosen the nut. So I have the screws removed from each torque arm. And now I can loosen the motor nuts. So since all 4 screws have been removed from the torque arms and the nut has been removed from either side of the motor, the whole motor will drop right out. If you don't have enough cable to pull this away to do the repair, that's okay. There are some zip ties holding it onto the motor cable protector. Just cut those zip ties off and remember, if you don't have enough cable after that, you can go to that underside plate, loosen those screws, don't take them off, just loosen them, and you can pull that cable out. As you can see, this cable is actually about 3 feet long, so you would be able to pull it out. So taking a closer look here, you can see the torque arm and the spacer, and then everything behind it. So we got to remember to keep that order when we put it all back together. Obviously, this isn't the same wheel as the motor, but this tire is exactly the same in dimensions and everything. It's just a wheel I had that'll make it a little bit easier for doing this video. But the process is going to be exactly the same. So we're going to make sure that the tire is completely deflated, which I'm guessing it already is because you have a flat tire. You know, taking the tire off is actually going to be the easy part. It's putting it back on that's the hard part. So, you know, when we're taking it off, we don't really have to worry about the tube on the inside and popping it because it's already popped. So we're going to take our tire irons, and it's going to take a lot of force, guys. Remember, these are motorcycle tires. But you're going to start to pull it over like this. And what is helpful is if you get 2 of these, and sometimes even a 3rd one, and you do them all at the same kind of time. So there we go. I'm going to shift it down. Try to pull a 3rd over. Not quite there. Got 3 over. You can see I have part of this tire halfway off. We're getting there. All right, now I'm to the easier part where I can just kind of go around. And now that whole side of that tire is out. If you don't have tire irons, you're not going to get this done. You have to get tire irons. So just go to Amazon, buy a $15 set of these tire irons. Try not to get the cheapest ones. Don't get a plastic set, get a decent set, and you'll be good. All right, so now I'm going to take my tire iron. I'm going to pry up, push it over, and now I have it on the other side of the rim. I'm just pulling that off. It's honestly, guys, 90% of this is just brute strength, I'm going to be honest with you. So I got my tube. This tube is actually fine. I'm just using it as an example, but let's say I threw out my old tube. Great, I got a new tube. Just make sure the tube dimensions match as best as possible to your tire. Okay. All right, now I'm gonna put the tube inside the tire. Remember the zip ties? Get your zip ties out. I purposely got some that weren't quite long enough because I want to show you. Just combine 2 zip ties. Okay. Put it over your tire. And cinch that down. And what you're wanting to do is close the bead together so that it is more like 1 bead instead of 2 open beads. And so that you can't get to that tube using your tire iron. I know this is confusing, guys. You can see, hopefully, how I have that zip tie closing that off. So you can see the tube up here, right? But down here, it's closed. Basically, this is gonna make it so that we only have to put 1 side on instead of having to do 2 steps. All right, next step. Grab some tire shine or some soapy water or something that's gonna help lubricate this. Don't use like acetone or like a cutting oil, something crazy. Just keep it simple. And we're just gonna spray the whole tire with this. And this is gonna help us get it onto the rim. It's gonna be a lubricant because remember, tires are very sticky. They don't want to move on the metal rim. They wanna stay put to give grip. So we gotta help that along. I'm also gonna add some to the rim itself. on this bead. So to get started, we're going to put the stem through the stem hole. And once you get it through, you're going to want to put the stem cap on so that it does not come off. Got my stem cap. All right, stem cap on. Now I'm going to just start the process of working the tire on. And sometimes you're lucky and that soap will be enough that you can pull on the majority of this by hand. You're not going to get all of it, but you'll get a lot more than you might think. And then you're going to use your tire iron and start to pull it over. It's going to be kind of different for every tire. But the nice thing is, because you put those zip ties on, you're not having to do 2 steps. You're just doing 1. Look at that. One thing you're just watching for is making sure that you're not pinching the tubes with your tire irons. Because that means you'd have to start all over. Boom. It's on. That was kind of difficult, but it wasn't crazy. The things that make this difficult are, 1, if it's a smaller wheel size. So I've done scooter wheels, like 8 to 10 inch wheels, and putting those on is nearly impossible. Number 2 is not properly lubricating the rubber itself so that when you're trying to get it on here, there's just too much friction. So adding some tire shine or some dish soap or something is going to help that bead get onto the rim a lot easier. And then 3, not zip tying it. You don't have to do the zip tie trick. It just reduces the possible risk of puncturing the tube with the tire iron. I highly recommend it. It's like $1 worth of zip ties, and I can't tell you how many times I have punctured tubes by just skipping that step and resented not doing it. So from there on out, you're going to need to balance the tire. So just take everything in reverse, put the torque arms on, put the spacers on, make sure the motor nut is very tight. Those Nordlock washers will help secure it. So if you don't go too crazy, those Nordlocks are going to help you. And then once you get it up on that swing arm, you can deflate the tire and repressurize it and deflate it a little bit. That way you get everything nice and centered so that you're not kind of hopping up and down on the road from a improperly balanced tire. Okay. All right, guys, I hope that was helpful. If you get stuck, you can email our team, info@sparkcycleworks.com. We do also offer the service to our customers. If you get a flat tire, we can send you a box. You can send the motor back to us and we will replace a flat for you. So just get a hold of us and we'll help you out.